A very good afternoon to everyone who has joined us here today. I'm Swani from the Startup India team. Today, we have gathered here to kickstart our celebrations for Women's Day. Women entrepreneurship has been one of the key driving forces behind India's growing startup ecosystem and as well as its overall economic development. This year, hence, we're celebrating all the women in the ecosystem who have been at the forefront, paving the way for the startups to flourish. Mrs. Obama wrote in a book, Becoming, that we have to find a way to continue to lift other women up in our worlds and in our lives as much as possible. Today, we have one such leader with us here today, Dr. Abha Rishi. Her passion and focus for student women entrepreneurship has mentored over 1,000 women and student entrepreneurs. We welcome you, ma'am, to our session today.
Thank you, Swani. Thank you.
For the benefit of the audience, Dr. Abha Rishi is the CEO of Atal Incubation Center, BIMTECH, and is also the chairperson of the uh, Center for Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Development at Birla Institute of Management. She is also the treasurer for the BIMTECH Foundation and has received various awards such as Accenture Inclusion and Diversity Award for her work with underprivileged sections of the society. So, before we start with the session, for everyone who's joined us here today, we have a few list of questions that we have had from ma'am. And in case you have any questions that you would want to ask ma'am, you can drop in the chat box and we will be more than happy to ask those for you. So, ma'am, should we start with the session?
Absolutely, absolutely. And to the audience out there, I'll suggest that think of this as an AMA. Ask me anything. So I've been there in this long run for the last 27 years. So might as well as use my experience and whatever things that I have gone through so that you don't have to go through that learning curve and you accelerate your journey faster.
Thank you so much. So, our first question is that the startup ecosystem has been thriving. However, we don't see many women leading incubators in the country. How has your experience been leading the incubator?
Well, Swani, first of all, leading an incubator didn't happen overnight. I've been in the startup ecosystem for more than 16 years now. So it's first as an entrepreneurship educator and then later on as an entrepreneur myself. Because I quickly realized that you cannot be an entrepreneurship educator if you don't have the kind of experience to tell the entrepreneurs what is right and what is wrong and where you need the right kind of guidance. So not many people know about it, but I have co-founded two ventures of my own. Both are running successfully. So my journey, like I said, started around 16 years ago when I came into this whole ecosystem. And since that time, I have mentored nearly 2,000. Last count it was nearly 2,000 women and student entrepreneurs. And so doing that, this whole idea of setting up an incubator is actually a natural progression. In 2016, when the government came out with this call for applications for starting for a PPP kind of model based incubator, so we were one of the first people to apply. And let me also tell you, more than 4,000 applications were received across the country, and we were among the few 10 to initially make it to the first count. And after that, so things have been like going systematically. So from entrepreneurship educator to entrepreneurship myself, and then mentoring students and women, and then finally creating an incubator. It's a natural corollary, it's a natural progression, because as you go along the path you understand what are the elements that is needed for entrepreneurship to actually thrive, and an incubator provides that, creating that environment, that ecosystem wherein new ventures, those fledgling startups, they need. So creating that for them was part of the whole journey. So like I said, it's not been an overnight thing, it has happened in the last 16 years. Well, in 2017 when we got the funding, not many people had an idea about running an incubator. So for us, it was like actually reaching back into our research books and finding out like what is happening, because in 2016-17 India itself didn't have many incubators, and those that were there were not what could be called as really successful ones compared to what was happening out in the Western and the other Asian countries. So it took us around 6 7 months to kind of research into what is happening in the world, look at the ways and methods in which nearly the top 100 incubators of the globe are functioning, and then create our own action plan. So that's in a nutshell what the journey has been about. So what you see today as our incubator, I mean the fast growth that you see in our incubator has actually been planned 3.5 years ago. So yes.
Oh wow, that's very that's been a quite a journey. I in fact have a following up question here, ma'am. You mentioned that you've been in the business for 16 years. Back in the day when you joined, not just the incubator, but joined the workforce and wanted to and worked with over 2,000 women entrepreneurs and students that you mentioned. Back in the day, how difficult or what were some challenges that you faced? Were there other women in the ecosystem, or was the ecosystem accepting of you? What was there any challenges in the journey?
Forget about the whole gender thing. I mean, the whole idea about entrepreneurship itself was something more of a shock to many people. 16 years ago, when the country was not even ready for this kind of entrepreneurship. So, when I would be mentoring some of the women and the student startups, the first question that would come from their family and their close stakeholders would be, I mean, are you crazy? And if I were to put it in that typical UP bhasha, pagla aa gaye ho ka? I mean, it's like, I mean, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, entrepreneurship and these kids. So, yes. And from there, you have to start the whole journey. I mean, you have to kind of get the mindset into those people that, yes, entrepreneurship could be something that they could look at. I mean, even way back then, it could be seen that entrepreneurship is something which would become the need of the hour, because the gap in the workforce creation and the number of jobs being created was there. I mean, the gap was steadily increasing. So you could easily see that in the future, which is, I mean, the present today, you would see that there's the need for job creators. So where would the job creators come from except through entrepreneurship? So that is how the thing started. And challenges were immense. I mean, I'm just talking about the mindset. I mean, that's one of the most tough things to change. But besides that, I mean, if you had to think about financing for the startups, I mean, women going to banks, the first thing that they would ask is, okay, well, who's working along with you? Is it your husband, your father, your son? I mean, they wouldn't believe that a woman could stand on their own and create successful ventures. And I'm talking like 15, 16 years ago. But thankfully, things have changed. It's much, much better now. The acceptance of women as leaders, of CEOs, of having their own startups and successfully running it is much more acceptable now. So, I mean, the ecosystem itself has changed. Earlier, I mean, think about any element in the ecosystem, and the first question would be like things like this. So, definitely, I mean, there has been an improvement. But hats off to those ladies. I mean, those who started off their ventures 16, 17 years ago and have gone through the grind to reach where they are now. So people like, I mean, you'd see Nika now, you see Rajni Bector's venture now, but they have gone through that grind. It's
True.
not been an easy journey for them. So, yes.
Agreed. Ma'am, while we are in conversation about, women that have started their business back 16, 17 decades back and have gone through the grind, not just those, but also, other women that you've interacted throughout your journey. Who is that one person who you admire, or is someone that you idolize? And if there are any learnings that you've drawn from her journey and you would like to share with the audience?
Sonny, actually, this is a question that really stumps me when it's put to me, because in our times, and I'm not that old, but yes, there have not been many women idols in that sense. So if you look around 20 years ago, there were not many people that you could really idolize. And moreover, I've been the kind of person that I don't believe in one person, because every person has got their own strengths and weaknesses. So when you idolize somebody, you just look only at their strengths, you don't see their weaknesses. For me, it's like Nobody's perfect. So you have to pick the best out of many. So if I were to think back, I mean, I would probably think about Kiran Bedi. I would think about Kiran Mazumdar Shaw at that time was really upcoming at that point of time. But for me, I would even go much more back and think about people like Golda Meir. I mean, the first lady who started the whole concept of Israel and who also was a prime minister. Then you could also think about Margaret Thatcher, and she changed the entire policies in many ways in the United Kingdom. So those were the kind of people that I grew up admiring. I mean, how they were strong in themselves and had the strong uh, commitment to change things from the normal run of the mill. So those were the kind of people. Then, of course, I mean, you look at Mother Teresa, who gave her entire life and the commitment which comes with that. And if I were to name a few more, I mean, probably you would never have heard about them. But for me, I grew up on those legends. My grandfather and my mother, they were great storytellers. So I grew up on the legends of people like Rani Abaka. I mean, now she's being talked about in the north, but she has always been a great legendary figure in the south. So she was the first woman to defeat Portugal. Then you had Unni Archa. I mean, she is one of those art people from Kerala. I mean, she stood for women empowerment in Kerala. I mean, I'm talking like probably the 1700s, those way back then. And then I don't know whether you have heard about Keladi Chennamma. She defeated Aurangzeb. I mean, she was what do you call ruling a part in Karnataka, and she defeated Aurangzeb. I mean, how many people talk about women like this? Strong women who stood the test of time. Then think about our national leaders themselves, like Bikaji Kama. You have Captain Lakshmi Sehgal from INA. These are the names that need to come to the forefront. I mean, they have been lost in the times of history, but they were strong people and they were like legendary figures in their own times. So for me, these are the people who made the world what it is today. And probably, I mean, they're the ones that I would like to emulate. Yeah.
That's great to hear, ma'am. That's actually quite a list, and I'm sure that the audience would also draw the learnings that you drew from their journeys and in their own lives and the start and the work that they do. While we mention about all the women that you worked with, over 2,000 women's lives that you've touched, uh, were there any stories that touched your heart of about the struggle that they went through or the challenges that they went through, despite of which they thrived, they worked hard towards their own dreams of building their own ventures, of becoming independent? uh, do you would like to share some stories that of some inspiring women of which you worked with in the past?
I think each and every one of those 2000 people have had beautiful stories behind them. I would not like to name names because some of the stories are a bit disturbing. But what I'll share is how they came to be what they are today. So, if I were to talk about a lady that I met when I was working, see, we do a lot of work with the prisons, the jails. And women, if you think about it, women who are convicted, of course, they have their own issues. But there are many people, around 70% of the women who are there in the different jails have not been convicted. They're under trials. I mean, they have been put there because somebody pointed a finger and they have been put into the process. So these women, whether they are guilty or not, are still stigmatized by the society as being guilty. And there is one lady who I worked with. She started her own micro enterprise. She was a victim, actually. I mean, because she didn't come from a very wealthy background and she was semi literate. So she had to face a lot of problems because of certain issues in the village. And she was put into the jail under false premises. And the system, of course, as all of us know in India, the legal system takes its own time. In that time, I came across her, but what I saw was beyond the fact that she was being victimized, she had the strength in her to think about the future. Otherwise, many people would kind of buckle down and fold up under such pressure. But she had that strength in her, and we helped her create a micro enterprise of her own. And that's where we got also the idea of helping other women inmates. So we then kind of formalized the whole structure and started training women inmates to go in for creation of their own micro enterprises. So think about it. I mean, somebody for no fault of their own has been put into jail. They don't have any recourse except possibly prostitution. Such people thinking about regaining their lives, their dignity, and going in for such kind of things. That's a beautiful story in itself, isn't it, Swani? I mean, think about it. And
Absolutely.
similarly, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So similarly, there are students of mine who have come from very conservative backgrounds, but who stood up to their family, convinced them that yes, they're on the right way, and then started their own ventures. And today they are thriving. And I mean, it makes me happy to see the kind of things that they are doing. And you know, it's not about just them doing it, it's also about what they do to give back to the society. I mean, some of them have started their only women only manufacturing units. So it's like giving back to the society, and those are the those are the stories that really touch your heart.
Uh, Absolutely, ma'am. In fact, it's we as a community that can always uplift each other. So if there are women out there who are taking the first step of starting their own ventures and empowering other women to come work with them, that's a little bit that each one of them is doing, and it's really heartfelt to hear that. In fact,
There's
while
one
we're on, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just one thing I just wanted to add on here. You know, there was this project that we were doing with Goldman Sachs, and the women. I mean, we were training the women entrepreneurs or would-be women entrepreneurs, and one of the things that they said is we cannot go ahead and create that boys' pack kind of thing, which happens over drinks in the evening on Fridays and other things. So I said, not necessary. You can create your own women pack, help each other out. I mean, leverage on each other's strength. So if one of you is running a boutique and the other one is running, say, a shoe store, what you can do is cross subsidize each other. So if you buy from the boutique, you get a subsidy in the bookstore, the shoe store, and so on. And if you buy in the shoe store, you get a subsidy. So create that networks within yourself wherein you help each other out. Forget about the men. I mean, yes, the men's networks have been there, and it will always be there. So create parallel ones. So those kind of things I mean, tell the women entrepreneurs and those who are otherwise also listening, we have to be each other's strengths. We have to hold each other's hands.
That's a very innovative way to look at it. I'm sure the listeners out there would imbibe a few of these tricks and would form their own little cult of supporting each other. While we're in this conversation about, women entrepreneurs and how is it that they can support each other, in your experience, what are certain challenges that women face, if at all, while raising funding or scaling up their operations, given that, it's a growing ecosystem, and it's women are now stepping forward and building their own ventures. So if at all you have experienced or you've seen your students experience certain challenges during the process of scaling up their ventures, if you could share a few instances for the audience, and how
Sure.
is
I
it that they
mean,
overcame those challenges.
right. I mean, that's more important, the solution to it, because
Yeah.
everybody faces the challenges. See, like I said, around 10 years ago, till 10 years ago, most of the people who were giving funding were men. I mean, whether you talk about angel investors, whether you talk about banks or anything, I mean, men were the ones who women would face when they would go for funding. So, like I said, the first question would be like, who are you? What is your credibility? I mean, tell us about your brother, your father, your son. We are more interested in knowing about them rather than about you. So that would be the first barrier that most women would face when it came to funding, getting the credibility. So today, what is happening is there has been a change, of course, in the system. For first of all, you have women angel investors, you have women VCs, you also have a lot of women bank managers who are willing to listen and who understand the things where the women entrepreneurs are coming from. But it's also on the onus of the women entrepreneur to know that they themselves also have to build up their credibility. So if you're going with a business plan for getting funding, you should make sure that you have done your homework, that you have done your preparations. So build up that credibility, build up that strength in the plan itself, that people should not refuse you just because of your gender. And even if they do, then you have the complete authority to ask them, like, what is wrong with my business plan, right? So creating that kind of a credibility is the first step that you need to do. The second step and possibly parallelly is creating that kind of a ecosystem within your family also, because as you grow up the ladder, you will need their support. If you know that somebody has got your back at home, it's going to make a lot of difference in your working.
Yeah, true.
Even today, many women face this kind of challenges, like they have to go on a tour, who's going to take care of the home, they have to sit back late in the office, because in normal corporate life also you have to do these kind of things to grow. So how do you really go ahead and find solutions to that? So the first solution that I'll say is find that support system. It could be within your family itself. It could be like you create a support system, like you get hold of the best babysitters, or you find somebody who's going to be there to look after the home. So those kind of things you really need to do. Because, like I said, you can face challenges provided somebody has your back. So if the personal things are taken care of, you can always focus more and commit more to your professional life. Second, and this is also very important, is find your own time, that me time, that downtime. Because what happens normally is that women tend to burn themselves out by trying to balance everything. They want to look at the home lives, they want to look at their professional lives, and then, like, at the end of like 4 or 5 years, you feel so burnt out. To avoid that, you also need to find some me time. Okay, be selfish, I'll put it like that. Be selfish with that me time, but you should do that. Unless, I mean, you're happy to get burnt out and then sit at home and then be of no value, in that sense that you're not adding on value either to your home or to your professional life. Homemakers are really valuable. That's something that needs to be put in here, like, many people knock off homemakers as saying that they're not doing anything worthwhile. No, the amount of work that they do at home, if you put that into monetary terms, it's way beyond that any man could earn at that particular point of time. So those things need to be looked into. So give yourself that little few minutes in a day or a week or something, like, keep that with you, because that keeps you grounded. That makes you, right? So don't ever give up with that. So these are the two things that I'll definitely say. Get your support system, very important. Two, have your own me time. Be a little selfish. I won't say too much, but be a little selfish, right? Yes, Sonny.
That's actually a very interesting way to look at this, ma'am. And I hope that the audience, especially the women entrepreneurs or aspiring women entrepreneurs out there, have taken notes of the two things that you just mentioned. My next question is that, academicians play a very important role in the very early stages of the student's life, right? Be it the boys, the girls. And now that so many academic institutes have incubators inside them, have started supporting ventures. We now see women entrepreneurs, young girls trying to put out their ideas and start their own ventures. But still, especially in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, it's going to take time to percolate down to those levels wherein it is stigmatized for women or young girls to start their own ventures. Being an academician, what would be your piece of advice to other professors or academicians out there, that how is it that they can play a role in encouraging young women or young girls to start and live up to their own dreams and work towards the dreams that they have uh, aspired or would want to work towards?
True. I mean, it's a very, very important question that you have put, Swani, because usually the parochial and the patriarchal attitudes that are present in the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities really kind of kill the dreams of many a young lady. So for the academicians, and I've seen my colleagues also do this, that they really support these young girls. I mean, if they have some dreams, they kind of mentor them. So there have been instances where girls have come up to me and said that, "Ma'am, we'd like to do this, do like be certain things." So when I mentor them, one thing that I tell them is be true to yourselves. If you don't know English, it doesn't matter. As long as you know what is important at a particular point of time, just go ahead and do it. Because skills you can always learn, whether it be it's English, or whether it is communication skills, or whether it is public speaking skills. All these are skills which can be learned. The only thing is that you should be true to yourself and to your dream. So if you have the dream of becoming the world's best orator, take public speaking classes, get out of your comfort zone, push yourself, and do it. Because the world ultimately looks at only the success. It doesn't look at failures. It only looks at what you have achieved. And many people forget that success is only the top of the ice, the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the turmoils, the challenges, and all those troubles are actually under the water. Many people don't see that. They only see the success. They don't see the sleepless nights that these girls have gone through, or the kind of efforts that they have put into. And it's actually true, Swani, for women and especially girls to succeed, they have to put in more than the 100%. But once they are successful, then they should also lend a hand to the others who are struggling to come up. And that's where the entire chain gets built. We are luckily in that place where the transition has happened. I mean, at least now mindsets are changing. 25 years ago, a women, I mean, let me tell you an example. Like, I was always a rebel. I mean, after my post graduation, I was offered a job in Delhi and I was offered a job in Meerut. I took up the job in Meerut. I mean, I could have had a comfortable job here in Delhi. I said, nothing doing, I'm going to Meerut. And the situation in Meerut was such like that nobody had the culture of saying ma'am, because they had never seen a lady in a management position. So they used to call me sir. And that is where the whole thing started. I mean, from there to now, I mean, there's been a lot of change. But yes, for all the women out there, for all the girls out there, if you want to achieve something, you have to break the barriers. You have to step out of the comfort zone. Nobody else is going to come and do it for you. Support systems are there, but the breaking has to be done by you.
Very true, ma'am. Uh, it's very important to believe in your own dreams, to work towards them, and build a support system that you mentioned. uh, my follow-up question to this would be that, given that you and the entire team at AIC BIMTECH has supported so many women entrepreneurs, if there are any uh, programs, or how is it that you started working with women, especially, right? 2000 is a huge number. What was your journey like? Where was this idea stemmed? If there are any program structures that you have especially formulated for women entrepreneurs, and this is for not just for the audience but also the other incubators out there who have just started out, or would like to support women entrepreneurs. If there are certain tips or certain structures that you have conceptualized, if you could share a few with them.
So, Swani, we decided not to create specific programs for women entrepreneurs, but we at the same time decided that we are going to get strong mentors for the women. So programs, we keep it gender neutral. I mean, there is no bias on whether it's a man or a woman. The programs are gender neutral, but the mentors we make sure are focused towards the kind of issues that the lady could have. So actually, I'll put it like this: women nowadays have a lot of support systems and a lot of programs and other schemes and other things that the government is doing a lot for. So at the incubator, we have actually gone one step ahead and we have created specific programs for handicapped women entrepreneurs. So
Oh,
that is the area that we are working on nowadays. And we did a pilot program for handicapped entrepreneurs uh, with LinkedIn Local and others, and the pilot ran very well. So then we decided on going in for a proper program, and we named it Sambhav, and that means possible, right? So the idea is that your dreams are possible. It can be done. So this project that we are doing with like I said, the women handicapped entrepreneurs and others who are underprivileged and who have these issues. So this program is specifically for them, called Sambhav. You dream, we will make it possible. That's
Oh, that's a
that's the tagline
beautiful
that we
tagline. It's a beautiful tagline. While we are at, supporting women and supporting young girls through programs and through incubation centers, to all the women, or I would say to all the young girls out there, what is that one piece of advice or two cents of advice that you would like to give to somebody who is just has just entered college or is very young, is in the teenage years, and towards taking not a traditional path but living their dreams? What are a few pieces of advice that you would want to give them?
Oh, I really wish that somebody had done that for me when I was growing up. But yes, so one of the things that I'll suggest is push your comfort zone. I mean, do not get into a comfort zone if you really want to succeed. You have to keep pushing barriers, you have to keep pushing envelopes, you have to keep challenging yourself. Do not get complacent. Do not just stay in your comfort zone, keep pushing it. And the second one that I'm going to say, and it's very important for all of us out here, is create networks. Create both professional and personal networks. Because in a country like India, and even otherwise in many other countries that I have been, networks makes the difference. And you can really leverage on your networks at critical times. So create that networks. And when I say create networks, it doesn't mean that you just go out and meet people in conference with the end aim of leveraging out of their things. No, networks also mean that you have to give back. So it could be your time, it could be anything, but you have to give back also to make sure that the networks remain strong. So
True.
it could also be just volunteering. Many times, I mean, when I was a young student, I have done that. And that helps connect with lots of people out there. And because you're working for a specific cause, you know that, okay, this person is also interested in this specific area, and you get to connect. And those kind of bonds are really strong. So create those networks. And when you start when you're young, you have the advantage of time in front of you, but do it. So that's my 2 cents of advice to the girls out there. And never give up. Like, the world is going to throw lots of bricks, lots of challenges, and I mean, you name it, you're going to get it. But then never give up. You have to stand strong, and you have to like keep working systematically towards your goal. And reach out. That's one thing women don't do when they're going through crisis times. They kind of tend to go into their shells. Don't do that. There are a lot of people out there who are willing to help. So reach out also. And that's where your networks are going to come into play, right?
True, that absolutely makes a lot of sense, and I hope that people out there listening, if you're interested in what Dr. Abha Rishi does here, feel free to reach out to her. If you feel that any of us at Startup India can help you, please feel free to reach out. So, thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. It has been a pleasure understanding and learning from you about your journey and your thought process and perspective towards women in entrepreneurship and the ecosystem at large. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
You're most welcome, Swani. I mean, it's been 27 years, and like, it's really heartening to see the kind of change that has come in both the attitudes and the ecosystem and the way the things are moving. It's the right time to really go ahead and grasp your dreams. Go ahead and do it. Like, in our incubator, one of the taglines that we have come up with is we are in the business of creating unicorns, but with a human heart, because we want to make sure that social value comes back to you, right? Yeah,
The human connection stays.
absolutely. And that's very important. That's very important.
That's very true. On this note, it's me, Swani, from the Startup India team, signing off. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to all the audience who joined us here today. Bye. Take care. Have a nice day.
Thank you, and all the best, all the best.